I've been with Carney Sandoe for about 20 years. We are a recruiting and consulting firm for pre-K through 12 independent schools. I started part-time and I really fell in love with the mission, and here we are 20 years later. I worked my way up. When I think of equity, I think of helping those from marginalized groups, and when we came together for this grant partnership, we really wanted to push for the voices that have not been amplified.
I had been at an ADVIS event. They were going to be having this grant opportunity for folks who were doing tangible, actionable work around diversity, equity, and inclusion in independent schools.
The grantees are also going to be able to present at a variety of different conferences around the country, and they will end their year of presentations at Carney Sandoe's annual diversity forum in Philadelphia in 2020.
This grant funding went directly to the teachers to support the extra time that they would put into improve the climate in our schools so that we can lead in these rather extraordinary times. I work for ADVIS, which is the Association of Delaware Valley Independent Schools. I am now in year 20 as executive director. We have 130 independent private schools in the tri-state region. And we now provide 30 professional development programs a year. So we like to think of ourselves as resource central for our schools. When someone in one of our schools has a question, they know they can pick up the phone or send an email. Jonathan Ball from Carney Sandoe and I were talking about possibilities in the summer of 2018. It evolved into the idea for a grant project. The grant is Equity in Action, pushing for progress in our communities. We launched it last spring, and it was a great success. We were really overwhelmed by the response.
I think they saw an opportunity to make a little bit of difference. And the folks that they have are dedicated to this work, and they just want the experience of students to be better.
It was important for Carney Sandoe and ADVIS to partner just because of the work that we've seen the ADVIS schools do over the years and the impact that they are having within their communities.
We had 17 applications, which represented 19 schools, so there were 2 teams that applied.
The grant was open to all ADVIS member schools. It was really hard for us to decide on the 3 that we went with.
Thank goodness we had a committee, because I don't think any one person could have done it alone. This is step 1. We plan on continuing it. We hope that, it gains traction and does really make a difference in all of our school communities.
Teaching students with learning differences is tough, and this particular change came out of teachers.
AIM Academy is a small independent school outside Philadelphia, and we work with students in grades 1st through 12th grade with language-based learning disabilities. Part of my time is that I'm a curriculum and instructional leader for diversity, equity, and inclusion across all 3 divisions at the school. The project that I have been working on developing for the Equity in Action grant has been taking some formal systems that we use to assess instructional fidelity and apply a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens to them. Instructional fidelity measures are really a way to formalize accountability and holding people accountable for something that we've identified as a core instructional practice in our school. So one of the tools that we use is a teacher practice profile, and essentially what that is, it is outlining what does ideal implementation look like in different realms of instruction, whether it is comprehension or vocabulary instruction or teaching inferencing. What do we expect gold standard teaching to look like? And then going along with that, we also have a tool called a curriculum fidelity inventory. And what that is, it's more of like a checklist. It's a tool that I can take into classrooms that takes some of the things that we've identified as ideal practices and breaks them down into really discrete, minute, observable teacher behaviors. It's just a way to capture what I'm seeing and then be able to give feedback to teachers that says here's what I'm seeing done really, really well, and here are some suggestions where we could deepen this practice. How can we not throw out all the things that we're doing and not scrap it, but how can we deepen it? How can we make it more diverse? How can we make it more representative? How can we bring in narratives that aren't typically part of these conversations that we're having and do that in a really intentional and proactive way?
I set Penn up with the principles of how to design a practice profile, and then they took that and created the different components that lead to an equitable, inclusive education with a representative curriculum, and they came up with the granular details that they would like to see in each of the classrooms. It's been really impressive to see Penn take this priority of inclusive education and these principles of implementation science and make this project happen.
A lot of what we do is kind of trying to really work individually to get to know each student and figure out what are their strengths as a learner that we can leverage, and then what are some areas where they might need a little bit of support. Everyone can learn this way. Everyone probably should learn this way. The difference is that our students, this is the way that they access learning. The way that I think about neurodiversity from a teaching or an education standpoint is just really looking at the way that someone's brain works best and where it feels most comfortable, and creating opportunities for it to just do its best work. Teaching in particular is thinking back over my experiences as a student. What are experiences that I value that contributed positively? How can I recreate some of those conditions? And then also, what are some things that I wish I had that I didn't? I feel there's a lot of respect and trust in knowing that I know my students and that I can craft experiences that are going to give them what they need. What are some things that you would hope or expect to see, in the environment? What would that kind of look like?
Being more open to having more open conversations. I think that those are two things that are literally tailor-made perfect for this environment.
We're here to be taught, and we'll accept you teaching us because you're our teachers, but treat us more than a student,
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I totally agree. Early on in my teaching career, it was something that I mostly did in the bubble of my own classroom. And I felt in order for me to level up and for me to understand these things more deeply and progress in my own practice, I needed to be in collaboration with other folks who were wrestling with these things. And I was really fortunate to find a community of people who were interested in having those conversations. As much as I am a huge theory nerd, and believe me, I can talk theory all day, it's very exciting to me. I really like it to be coupled with action.
People really value that opportunity to get together and network and meet others who are doing similar work, especially in the administrative areas. People can really become isolated in their offices and in their work.
This Equity in Action grant came up, and it really happened at the perfect time, in that it was aligning right on top of what we were hoping to do, which was take the expertise of someone like Penn, who has been one of our curriculum instructional leaders now for several years, and take that same model of how do you impact the life of a student, the learning of a student, which is through the curriculum and instruction, and apply it to equity work.
Having Penn support in developing those lessons, the background knowledge, and how to contextualize that, and starting the conversation that we started several years ago about looking at our texts that we teach and being more evaluative of how they represent us as a community and the broader community that we live in. That alone isn't enough. I think a lot of the work that Penn's doing is helping teachers learn it themselves. They can then teach it to the students or just be more aware of it. I would say that I'm deeply a learner as well.
The grant has enabled us to not only formalize the work that Penn is doing here, but also legitimize the work that Penn is doing here. And it also put it in this category that we take very seriously as a school for children who learn differently, and that there are a host of right ways and a host of wrong ways to talk about these topics as well.
Once we start talking about my ancestors, it's a weird situation and people start to get really uncomfortable talking about it. So it's quickly passed so we don't have to talk about it.
What do you say? Do they know what to say? Do they know how to talk about it?
There's a lot of fear around talking about topics. How do you talk about these topics to build dialogue? And using the support of Penn to kind of begin to not shy away, but embolden into that conversation and take risks with it as well.
So the first part of what I did was the research, and then use that to craft drafts of a teacher practice profile that outlined ideal praxis for a teacher that is exemplifying really equitable and inclusive instruction in a classroom across divisions, and then creating this curriculum fidelity inventory that then our instructional leadership, which includes me, but also division heads, also other curriculum and instructional leaders, can take into classrooms to document what we're seeing and see where our folks are. The other piece that I've been creating is a self-reflection. So I'm also asking folks within my institution, both at an administrative and leadership level, but also on a practitioner or teacher level, to check in with some of these things that have been identified as best practices and kind of check in with themselves and indicate whether they feel a lot of like mastery in certain areas or whether they feel that it's like a developing proficiency where they could use more support. I am a resource across all 3 divisions. Anybody can come to me and I can help them apply this lens.
In Penn's workshop, we really became much more aware of the words coming out of our mouths as we greet our wonderful community. We feel like this is our moment to connect. We have these couple of hours, we prepare for it, and when everyone comes in, the whole kitchen lights up. Everyone feels welcome, happy, and full.
It's been really interesting to watch the overlay that we would take to say something like reading or math or classroom behavior or differentiation and map it to equity work across 12 grades. I mean, there's so much work for schools to do in terms of teaching kids a breadth of knowledge, a breadth of vocabulary, a breadth of cultural experience. You know, we're just scratching the surface on how to do this right.
Nobody does anything perfectly, but I really want to. Especially stuff like this, like it's so deeply like important to me, and I know that it's so crucial for students. With any type of activism, it is hard. It's never done, it's never enough.
And these are little steps, but we need this bigger than this grant. This is about the world. The classroom is the real world. It is.
The necessity of like forming these connections and collaboration so that I could keep learning, so that I could keep leveling up, so that I could still like come and be in this world that is inequitable, that like is unjust. Yes, we have to be armored out there, but like I want to create some spaces where people can take off that armor and they can put it down and they can be whole. I know that that's like possible for students because I've experienced that in this community. I've shed a lot of pieces of armor, and just hearing like you speak and hearing like Suruchi speak and stuff today, I just feel like incredibly overwhelmed, and I just feel like I feel really grateful. Thank you.
We're starting with students who will progress in this world and become change makers. We're helping to lay this foundation of what they're going to be able to do in this world and hopefully have a positive impact.
When we merged with MCRC in 2015, we knew we were serving far more schools and far more people. To get their projects out nationally, maybe even internationally, was a lot of the incentive. And I think the diversity of the projects themselves is really interesting. When I first saw John's proposal, I thought, math? How does this compute? And I thought, wow, what an innovative approach.
If you want to be impactful within this space, you have to go beyond just the numbers.
I learned a lot about what I meant when I said words like privilege. We have to interrogate our ideas because as a teacher, you know that there's certain questions people are going to ask you. Agnes Irwin is a 150-year-old school. I teach upper school math and I'm the coordinator of equity and inclusion. The grant was specifically for creating an online database of civics and social justice topics, and they're arranged by algebraic subject. So stop and frisk. Do we know what stop and frisk is? Nope. That's a general idea? I know you didn't see this. You didn't see this coming, right? You didn't see this coming.
Specifically with this class, I didn't see that coming.
What is the probability that a person was stopped given that they're black?
So 13%.
Cool. These numbers don't look good in terms of randomly stopping people, right? The idea is for this to be something that any math teacher could pick up and start using. What really got me into all of this was Ta-Nehisi Coates' cover story, The Case for Reparations. That's when I started to see all the math of this. And it occurred to me at one point that I wasn't translating in my classes. I was not giving that to my students. I started with the things that I knew the most about, the things that I had done the most projects on with my students already, and built around those. Some of these things teachers will assign as a single problem. Some of them might be a whole day discussion. Some of them might be a project they'll do over a week. All the mathematical concepts are already there in our curriculum. We just haven't made that final connection. This is something that's missing from math education from a social justice standpoint. Kids don't feel connected to math, and we don't do a very good job connecting them because we ask them, like, if you're half your mom's age and she's 3 years older than your dad, how old's your dog type questions, and like that's not gonna win a kid over. Someone who's not that interested in the quadratic formula but does want to understand how wealth is maintained, suddenly exponential functions mean something to them. It's one of those things that once you see it, you're like, oh, so what else could I do with math? And then you realize that you have this opportunity with students in an algebra class, which is a class that literally everybody will take in high school, to show them why this stuff is meaningful and let them see the world in which they live. We say math is everywhere all the time, we just don't demonstrate that. Students want to relate to things because they're people and people want to relate to things. I don't want to learn about something in a complete vacuum. I'm selfish. I want to know how this relates to me and my experience and the world around me. I think when you're a math teacher, it is very easy to say math is this pure, unbiased, non-context thing, and even our word problems will be completely made up. And what I have found is that when you sort of go out of your safety zone, particularly for a math teacher, you're gonna say some dumb stuff. You're gonna be wrong. You're gonna be corrected by students and by your colleagues who will say, that's not okay what you just said. They weren't saying that and then closing me out. They were saying that like, so let's keep doing this work together. When you're open with them about what you're doing and why, people are very forgiving, I have found. I think that if I got up there like I'm the one voice in this room, then they're not as receptive, and then when you say something that they don't like, they're gonna say like, what am I even listening to? But when you say, I want to explore this, I want to know more about this, and you should too, everyone's invested in the process. It actually provides some type of language where we can talk about things that are very difficult for students to talk about that kind of de-escalates things a little bit. To make this a reality, I did a lot of experimenting with my classes, with my students, and they were gracious enough to sort of go on the journey with me for some of these things. As I'm thinking about how what I'm doing affects students, I'm also thinking about, are parents going to want to keep their kids in this school? I think the fears that a lot of us have are that we are going to say something wrong, or that we're going to do the right things, but our audience isn't receptive and suddenly we're in hot water. The beauty of being at an independent school is I can teach what I want to teach when I want to teach it. Math actually has a role in all this. I don't have to make these weird, long connections to justify this. I just have to sort of take off the blinders a little bit.
The work that John is doing in math, I've never seen or heard anyone else doing this type of study, and I think it's very unique, and I'm excited to see the findings.
I know teachers are so desperate for real tools they can use in the classroom. We plan to have a database of some sort, or a library, so to speak, accessible on our website. And that's part of the next iteration of the grant process that we look forward to working on with Carney Sandoe.
I think all the work the grantees have been doing is incredible. Whenever we talk about City Love, it's like talking literally about a warm hug, because they are just the most wonderful, loving duo. And the work that they're doing is so pure, and their music is great. They're so great. The first time I saw them perform, I was tearing up. It just pulls at your heartstrings.
I was in a band. Brian came to see this band play. He gave me a CD. And I was like, there's no way this is the same string bean white guy that I saw and had this deep conversation. And I was like, I need to make music with this person.
Maybe we can sing the Scuba Center, because I know kindergarten's going to the Scuba Center today. All right, a 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's all go to the Scuba Center. Come along so we can enter. Come along with me. On the bus, don't make a sound. Shh. Out the windows, look around, who knows what we will see.
Yeah!
Wow, good morning, everybody. You sounded beautiful. Thanks for singing along with us. We are City Love. We've been making music together as the duo City Love for about 5.5 years. At a certain point, we realized the need to start having these conversations with younger students, and started thinking about how to translate those messages into developmentally appropriate language without dumping the weight of the world on their shoulders.
We had released this album, and there was conversations that we had about how can we build out from the album and just make it even more accessible for folks. And knowing both ADVIS's work and Carney Sandoe's work, it was like, how do we partner with these organizations that have a reach across the area, across the country, really?
We heard about the Equity in Action grant.
We decided to put our hats in the ring, you know, and we're very blessed and honored to be able to receive the grant.
All right now, second grade, I saw y'all grooving a little bit.
We had to just do a lot of thinking together about how we want to make this into a bite-sizable approach for schools to be able to replicate. And one of the things we're working on with this grant is a curriculum. So really empowering teachers who might have some hesitations around like having these conversations, broaching these conversations, how can we support them in sort of this professional development light to say, you can do this, and here's a way you can play this song and have these 4 activities to do, and this will help to build the kind of community that you're hoping to build.
You know, how can we address these issues, and what are some of the issues that we're seeing coming up in the classrooms? How can we really provide students with the vocabulary and the tools and the information that they need to really address the challenges in the world today and in the classroom? We're also working on developing some additional animated music videos for the songs to really get children and families to engage again and again and again with these messages, these values.
I think that the idea of having an accessible way to really embrace the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion with young children can't be understated. The ways in which Dwight and Brian are able to do that through music provide an entry point for everyone. So it's a really positive experience, which we believe is a really important part of the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, is making it something that's exciting to engage in as opposed to one that feels burdensome.
The City Love is really amazing, and Brian and Dwight are amazing educators and totally in line with the work that we do here. We are a progressive school and we are committed to the work of equity and social justice. So starting with music, starting by talking about these things with kids at a very young age is totally in line with the work that we do, and we're committed to engaging with children in conversations about how we take care of one another, how we affirm one another, and really affirming aspects of one's identity.
People are different and people are the same. Why so many people out asking for change? Some people got left out of the game and some needed help, but nobody came. In this school, we're gonna care. In this school, we're gonna share.
That song is really talking about some of the ways we're the same and some of the ways that we're different. We wanted you to actually take a few minutes to turn and talk with someone right next to you. We want you to find 2 things that are similar about you, 2 things that are different about you.
And we're off.
I think that we're not only setting a great example for kids and having performances like City Love, but we're also giving them opportunities to just have words spin around in their heads a little while and for them to think about them and come to their own place of questioning or understanding. We're really lucky to be a part of it.
I think our hope is that when we get to visit a school, it's a chance to get to speak with a group of students and teachers about things that may not always be easy to address. It's okay to talk about race. It's okay to talk about our differences along other aspects of identity. It's important to name the ways that the world has not always been fair and is still working on being fair today, and help students realize the agency that they have in changing that and exemplifying the world that we need. Instead of having one 100-minute conversation, have 100 one-minute conversations. We need to embed this work into all the social emotional learning that students are doing, and think about what books are in your classroom that are showing. What kind of books are you reading with students? What questions can you ask your students to open up dialogue, see what they know? Really being mindful about all the opportunities that are already there in your day-to-day classroom life with students or in your family life. Because the kids are noticing, they're taking notes, and if we don't explain it and engage with them and hear what they know, they're gonna come to their own conclusion. Kids are ready for these conversations. We just need to be mindful of the words that we're using and give them some context and help them make sense of the really complicated world that they're in.
The beauty of young children is they say what they think, and often not with the same filters or even the same weights that we do as adults. So they're thinking all these things and they need to process them. If you don't create a venue for it, they're going to be doing it on their own at lunch, despite you being there or not. And so I think it's important to help facilitate the conversations.
I am a believer that kids are ready to engage in lots of conversations about fairness, because even 2- and 3-year-olds know when something's fair and not fair. And I think the way that we do it is really thinking about it from a very developmentally appropriate approach. The songs are catchy, they're easy to remember, and fun. You saw in the assembly how much the children enjoy it. And I think it's just a natural segue into kind of having these conversations.
In 5, 6, 7, 8, we love your skin. Yeah, we love your hair. Yeah, we love the people. Yeah, everywhere. Woo!
Brian and Dwight both know how to really connect with kids, like get them to engage with it, with whether it's movement or lifting up their voices within their performances. It's pretty incredible.
I like the "We're All Made of Stars" song. That's my personal favorite.
Yeah.
We're all made of stars. We're all made of stars. I'm not as good as Caselli.
We're all made of stars. We're all made of stars.
You sound great.
Different ways, different colors. We're all stars, let's love one another. Different ways, different colors.
Music is about community, and like you'll see in kindergarten a lot of times, like the kids just all, they all you got 25 kids like swaying back and forth singing this song, and that's it. You solved it all right then and there. Like, can we hold on to that?
So at a progressive school, you're always looking for hands-on ways, interactive ways to get kids to learn. So I think music, especially at that age, is a perfect medium to get through to kids because it sends a message and kids don't even realize they're learning because it's fun, right? The ability of Dwight and Brian to break it down to a rudimentary level, you can really get some content across. So for instance, this morning when I heard the song Empathy, and then the activity you did where they're mirroring each other, it's all about empathy. And the kids got that as early as kindergarten to 3rd grade. So I think music is a great medium to get across DEI work or any kind of content for that matter.
Empathy.
You're trying to sing along, you sound great.
I know you're really feeling me. Empathy.
Wow.
I know you're really feeling me. I feel it when you're happy. I feel it when you're sad. I feel it when you're scared, and I feel it when you're mad. All this empathy, it helps me to see, and it helps me take care of you. Beautiful TV, yes! Wow! I see the all-school theme.
Using music as the tool for us to have these conversations has just been really amazing, and teachers have reflected back to us that it's supported them to have these conversations.
I was one of those people that was afraid to have those conversations. I'm lucky enough that the Philadelphia school allowed me to get brave enough to have them.
With our school taking this position on DEI work to the next level, now we have a pretty robust program. You need a combination of agitation and working within the system to bring about change. And I think City Love has done that.
This time just feels like there's so much dissension and conflict. We have to do the work ourselves. And we know that in this world, in this country, we're gonna need everybody's brilliance to be able to problem solve some of the things we're seeing. Yeah. And then into the rap verse.
Sure.
And then back to the chorus.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah. Black, white, and every color. It was division, now it's addition. We got the numbers, it's time to add them up. It's always better when we're together.
Yes.
Black, white,
beef
and
salad.
every color.
To every color on the palette. Multiply,
now
don't divide. Cause me
addition.
plus you
We
equals
got the
life.
numbers.
Got them all
It's
on
time
deck.
to add
Count
them
'em up,
up.
see what's
It's always
next.
better
Cause I know,
when
and
we're
you know,
together
with each other, that's
it's
true
always
growth.
better.
True growth. It's always better when we're together.
Well, I think our response to our programs has grown exponentially. I think we are getting a little braver maybe with our topics and talking about it more on board governance level, which is really what we know is needed for true change to happen in our schools.
There are so many different challenges within different school communities. No one has all the answers, but there are a lot of people who are willing to do the work. Carney Sandoe is very hopeful that we'll be able to have an impact on a global basis, and we're really invested in the work that ADVIS and MCRC have done so far, and we hope to continue to partner with them in the future. And thank you to all of the ADVIS grantees. The work that you've been doing has been incredible. It's been wonderful to get to know all of you over the last few months. We're just so proud of you.
I want to thank Carney Sandoe and Associates. This equity work is just critically important. When I started, this MCRC ADVIS work was not on the radar at all, and it's been a wonderful opportunity to grab, and it's just probably the most fulfilling work I've done.
My dream and my hope for this work is that it will impact at least one person, and that this work will continue to go on. Drops fill up buckets, and it just takes time, and we're happy to be a part of this journey.